If everyone can find their seats, thank you so much. Good afternoon. Thank you. This is the final panel of the day. We're so delighted that you've spent the day with us. We hope you had an incredible experience with some positive, meaningful discussions on the Hill. It's really my pleasure to introduce this final panel and discussion around STEM education. This was the most requested discussion that we are leading here today, which means we have a lot of budding scientists and mathematicians and engineers and fintech engineers and so many amazing career paths in your future. So once again, please be ready with questions. We will try to take as many questions as we possibly can today. I know that some of you will be flowing in and out for the remainder of our congressional meeting day, so please feel free to do that as needed. We're also expecting a few members of Congress to give some remarks here, so we'll be looking to do that as well as a part of this flow. Our STEM education programming was really developed over the last couple of years through our STEM Stars program. Many of you here have earned STEM Stars, and to start us off today before our panel discussion, I'd like to introduce our board member and our friend from Ferring Pharmaceuticals, the sponsor of our STEM Stars program. Please welcome Mr. Jade Shields.
Can you hear me okay? So Erica brings me up and says, you're right before the most requested panel of the day. So I'll do everything in my power to be brief. As you age, you need these things here. So it's a pleasure, truly a pleasure to be here with all of you this afternoon. I know many of you have traveled far and wide to be here and attend the 2024 Congressional Award Foundation Gold Medal Summit. So welcome to Washington, D.C. To my fellow board members who are in attendance and to our chairman, Paxton Baker, thank you for all you do to advance the work of this incredible program. And I'd like to recognize Erica Heiss and the entire Congressional Award Foundation team for their hard work, commitment, dedication to providing opportunities for young people in America. Now, I know I said I'd be brief, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that just yesterday I learned that this is Erica's 24th year and one day with the program. However, she's been with the program for 25 years. Now, all you STEM stars are thinking, okay, what's the math on that? Her first day on the job was a part of the Gold Medal Summit. So I think that deserves a round of applause. Congratulations, Erica. Just a little bit about us. Ferring Pharmaceuticals is a proud supporter of the Congressional Award STEM Star Initiative. It fosters an interest in young people's minds as leaders to explore STEM careers, educating students to become future innovators and leaders who can solve the world's most pressing challenges is a priority. Congratulations to our gold medalist. You worked very hard and you've made a true difference in your communities. Each of you should be very proud of your accomplishments. We certainly are, and I'm sure your families are, and your communities are grateful. We are pleased to recognize our STEM stars in attendance who have pursued goals and activities in the areas of science, technology, engineering, and math, areas that are critical to the future of this nation and our world. Please stand if you've earned your STEM star. You may sit. Thank you. We're so proud that 287 students in this year's gold medalist class have earned their STEM star. 106 have joined us here this week. This group of young scientists, tech trailblazers, engineers, and mathematicians have completed various activities that show their commitment to their field. Now, I'm going to highlight a few people. Now, I know that's always dangerous because you're all so deserving, but we wanted to just pick out a few things to share with you as examples. There's Liam B. from Indianapolis, Indiana. Liam competed on a VEX robotics team. He learned about engineering, physics, and programming, and his team won the VEX World Championship. Then we have Madison C. from East Taunton, Massachusetts, one of the states I used to live in, reside in, beautiful place. Madison participated in a citizen science project and collected data contributing to Alzheimer's disease research and treatment. And then we have Aaron P. from San Jose, California, who launched a nationwide youth network to empower teens to be public health champions. Here for Aaron. And of course, we have Ava S. from Port St. Lucie, Florida. This one, I'll tell you what, just warmed my heart when I read it. Ava earned her FAA private pilot license in a glider, learning about weather and airspace and emergency procedures. And those are the written remarks, but I also just want to highlight the importance of connecting with people and making sure that you continue to build your network. At yesterday's event, the reception, it was fantastic to meet so many of you, and I continue to learn from all of you. But I want to call out my interactions with Olivia. I'm not sure if she's in the room, but it was just a delight to listen to what she was looking to do in the future. And then there was Amir, who he and his family and the passion that he talked about and what he wanted to do for his future, and really looking for advice and what he had planned to do in the next stage and next chapter. And then there was Thomas, who really was seeking guidance, but also looking to share his talents in so many ways. All very different people from very different places and diverse backgrounds, but with the same goal of helping people, and we appreciate that. At Faring, we're committed to providing innovative solutions to help people build families and live better lives as we strive to best address the needs of patients. Around the world, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math is a vital part of our mission as a pharmaceutical company. The Gold Medal Summit is a culmination of your hard work, commitment, and dedication. You should all be proud of what you've accomplished, and I'm excited to see what you'll do next. Continue to study and work hard. Live with curiosity, courage, and passion. And never lose that sense of selflessness by giving back and paying forward. I'll leave you with one of my favorite quotes. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Be kind. With that, after the next panel, we invite you to enjoy the STEM Stars reception, and myself, my team, and the panelists look forward to meeting each of you. Thank you and congratulations. Enjoy the panel.
Thank you so much, Jade. I'm going to invite Jade and our panelists to come to the front with our chairman, Congressman Johnson, Congressman Amo, to come right here for a quick photo. So we're coming right up here. Yeah, we need all the STEM panelists, please. We're going to be right in front of the table here. Panelists will have take your seats. If the panelists want to take their seats, it is my pleasure making our introductory congressional remarks to introduce Congressman Gabe Amo from the great state of Rhode Island, representing the 1st Congressional District. We've gotten to know the congressman a bit over the last couple of weeks, and we're very thankful for his time today and his support of the program. Congressman.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. How's everybody doing? Great. Oh, that's a little low energy. How is everybody doing? Great. You should feel good. You should feel good because this is a celebration of you, a culmination of your commitment, of your dedication, of your resilience and your brilliance in the field of STEM. And that's something that is so future-oriented, it gets me excited. You see, I'm just a lot like you. I had an experience when I was 17 years old, and I came to Washington, D.C., my first ride on a plane, and came to see the sights, see the halls of power, see influence, but also see potential and possibility. And that got me really excited. I'm not that far away from many of you. I'm 36 years old. I'm the 12th youngest member of the House of Representatives, and I remember when I was in your seats thinking about where was I going? What was I going to be? And what I did is I looked to examples of excellence I saw around me. Now you, in this crowd, are surrounded by other examples of excellence. Your peers, your contemporaries who I know will be inspirational to you for a time to come. And so that's what's special about the Congressional Award. It's more than just a feather in your cap. And judging by this crowd, I know you have plenty of feathers already. You, in this experience, are getting this high honor bestowed upon you by an institution that has endured in preserving our democracy, the United States Congress. And it's a way to recognize the next generation. But I don't want to limit you at next. I want to push you at now. You are it right now. And your education, particularly your STEM education, is going to play a crucial role in our collective future for all the country, not just driving innovation and progress in your communities, in our borders, but around the world. And so that's life-saving advancements in medicine, breakthroughs in renewable energy to combat climate change, exploring space and all that lies beyond, and so much more. And what you're going to be able to do will translate into a multitude of fields. Many of you might be in elected office one day. I hope to see some of you run for Congress. And so your work has never been more important. We need you now more than ever. And don't take that as too much pressure, okay? You're going to do great. Your presence here reflects that. But don't stop here. Keep going. Keep pushing. Because I know that as in my role as a member of Congress, it's to ensure that students like you have the skills and knowledge to succeed in life. And your successes will multiply, I have no doubt. So I hope you continue to hone those skills, hone those talents. And as you previously heard, be kind, be nice. Those who go far are wanted and welcome in a multitude of spaces. So I'm grateful to you. I am proud of you. Congratulations, and keep going. Take care.
Thank you so much, Congressman. We're now ready to get started with our panel. It's my absolute pleasure to turn things over to our moderator and our board member. You are in great hands with Dr. Johnson. Thank you so much, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank Jade Shields and Ferring for sponsoring this opportunity. Before we begin, I want to point out one fact. You already know this is about you. I want you to know we celebrate your 84,103 volunteer hours in STEM projects on behalf of Congressional Award Foundation. Please give yourselves a round of applause. I will be your moderator. We'll be together for about 60 minutes. 45 minutes will be listening to our esteemed panel, 15 minutes for questions and answers. I would ask our panelists to do a self-introduction. 1 minute, maybe 2 minutes. I'd like for them to say a little bit about what in their life was a STEM highlight, and then something that's personal to them. So as the moderator, I'll give an example. I'll introduce myself. I'm Brian Johnson. I perform miracles, save lives, put students on the path of righteousness, dip in their hip, glide in their stride, and function in their educational junction. I'm looking and I can tell this isn't the crowd for that. That's how I introduced myself. When I met Erica, I said, well, tell me about yourself. She says, I'm Erica Wheelan, as in wheeling and dealing. I mean, she had her own little limerick. I'm going to ask our friends to do the same thing. But the real example is this. I'm Brian Johnson. I've had the pleasure of being on this board for nearly a decade. My STEM highlight is this today in the Congressional Auditorium, introducing this esteemed panel to you. One personal thing about me is I am an installed chief in West Africa, in the Volta region of Ghana, and my name there is Togbi Duneyingo I, which means one who brings progress to the village. We'll do introductions, starting with our esteemed ranking member.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Congressman Hank Johnson. I'm from Georgia, Georgia's 4th Congressional District, which is the eastern suburbs of Atlanta. I've been in Congress for the last 18 years. Before I came to Congress, I was a criminal defense lawyer for 27 years. And so this year will mark my 70th year of living, and I have seen a lot during that time. I hope to be around to see a whole lot more happen, such as you young people ascending to positions like mine and lending your talents and your willingness to serve to benefit mankind, not just here in America, but throughout the entire universe. Because I don't know if we're the only people on Earth. I mean, Earth is just one little speck of an unfathomably infinite universe. So I can't say that we're the only folks that are here. But anyway, I'll yield now to the next panelist.
Excellent. Well, that's a hard group to be with up here. My name is Katie Barletta. I'm with Ferring Pharmaceuticals. I am a physician scientist, and I guess I would say that's probably my STEM highlight. Was I was part of the NIH-funded medical scientist training program, which helps the United States build a large group of physician scientists who practice medicine and also do research. And in my current role, doing research and development for a pharmaceutical company, that kind of education and training is really essential to help us bring new drugs through development to market. So that's kind of my STEM highlight and what I think is probably most interesting about my background and my career. And on a personal side, I'm also a very big athlete, and so I played softball in college. And so I think that combination of science and sports is always a fun one. So happy to talk about any of that.
Good evening. My name is James Moore, and I am the Assistant Director for the Directorate for STEM Education at the National Science Foundation. I'm on loan from The Ohio State University. I'm a distinguished professor and an administrator at Ohio State University, and I love young people because I feel if I can hang out with you all, certainly I'll live a lot longer because there's never a dull moment with you. The thing that I have the opportunity to do is to democratize STEM across the United States. We're the largest, my directorate is the largest entity in the federal government, arguably in the United States, that funds educational research. And what we do, we fund a variety of different things, but we enable for young people from all walks of life, from the Appalachia region, from the Delta region of Mississippi and Arkansas, to urban America, suburbia, every jurisdiction in this country. We're trying to catalyze opportunities where young people like yourselves can reach their dreams and aspirations. I, too, was a former student athlete. Probably should have did softball because my shoulders would be a lot better. I was a former student athlete who played football. So I am elated to be here because you all represent the future, the groundswell. And many of you all, I want you to, hopefully you'll have an opportunity to connect with each other because you all will be the future scientists, researchers, and innovators that will solve some of the grand challenges of our time. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll start with the first question for the double doctor, the MD and the PhD. No pressure on you, young people. And my question is, how would you convince someone deciding on STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math, to go into this field?
That's a great question. And I also wanted to add that I met many of you last night and am just so impressed by the things that you've already accomplished. And I think so many of you have already self-selected to go into STEAM, which I think is excellent. I think what I love about STEAM is that you can do anything with that education. Educating yourself in math and science and engineering and the arts is really important to kind of teach you how to think, and I think so much of your education is learning how to think and how to strategize and how to approach life in general. And so I think no matter what you choose to study, the STEAM fields are great at just shaping your mind and helping you think about and process what's around you. And I think what's exciting too is that you can do anything with a STEAM degree. And I know that that's probably a cliche thing to say, but just because you're an engineer doesn't mean you can't go on to be a congressman or a senator or go be a lawyer or a patent attorney. You can really do anything with this kind of training, and it's hard. And so being able to prove that you can do that education is a very valuable skill no matter what you want to do with your life.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Congressman Johnson, I looked at your website and I was struck that the 3 or 4 most prominent items featured were STEM or STEAM related. Recently, approval for $348 million to Georgia Piedmont Technical College, your institution. Your interest in expanding access and availability for those that suffer with hepatitis B. You have supported research on hydrogen aviation initiatives. I wonder if you would just tell us why these are passions of yours.
Well, first of all, I should admit to you that you're looking at probably the most unsteamed individual in the room. When as I was growing up, I was interested in music, but yet my mind was not in the place to actually learn music. So I was a drummer who reached a certain ceiling and could never break my head through that ceiling based on just the lack of the theory and learning more about the craft of being a drummer. And so that was typical of my mind, math, foreign language, science, those kinds of fields were like, it just didn't appeal to me. But things like, criminal law and going to court and representing people, and maybe one day coming to Congress, those were the things that I was interested in. And I'll tell you that having done all of those things, I have found that I got to go back and reclaim that part of my brain that I thought was not there when I was younger. So now I am trying to learn as much about areas that I have not been involved in, trying to learn as much as I can and exercise that part of my brain. And I want to make sure that all of those other young people who, like myself, found it difficult to tap into that part of their brain, to be able to go ahead and do that at a very young age, overcome your fears, overcome your lazy nature, or your hesitancy about challenging yourself in areas that are not comfortable to you. And it's particularly important that that be done now that society has transitioned full steam ahead in the information age. And that really requires a good, a healthy appreciation of science, technology, engineering, math, and the arts is a way of getting into those areas of the brain that may not be of, yeah. So I'll leave it at that. So anything having to do with education and promotion of opportunities for young people and older people to get involved in STEAM is something that is attractive to me.
Thank you. And panelists can tag on to any comment. I don't want to limit the question to the person, but I do want to move, Dr. Moore, to your area of expertise. Done a ton of research in the area of STEM. You've created environments at universities such as your alma mater, the Ohio State University. Would you tell us, please, what creates the conditions for excellent STEM or STEAM education?
Well, first of all, excellence exists everywhere, and how do we cultivate it? Not alum of Ohio State, but they give me ex officio status because I brought so much money to the university. But nevertheless, what I would say that is, in America, we have to stop saying that a person has the intellectual capacity and they'll do fine. I'm sure your coach never said that to you. My football coaches, basketball or whatever sport I played in, they wanted optimal success. And I think when we think about education, we need to think about what you just said, create the conditions where people can perform optimally. And what we tried to do, we had 2 Rhodes Scholars that came out of my office when I was an administrator. We had 2 Truman Scholars. And by the way, they were the first persons of color ever at the institution. And some of it is, how do you, equally as important as intelligence is how do you cultivate it around in a collective manner. So many people in science to solve some of the grand challenges of our time, team science, communication, technical skills, what some people call soft skills, but I call power skills, they're essential in terms of solving some of the grand challenges of our time. as we begin to think about this moment now, when we think about the pandemic, and slowly we're beginning to reclaim our humanity, and we now have forums and we can come together. But when our backs were against the wall, it fostered greater creativity and innovation. We were, the barriers that we had beyond the continental divide, we closed those barriers by sharing information as well as collaborating to solve some of the grand challenges. So I would say there's a tension in America about what we used to call it classical education, and now we fragmentize education in a way. You either STEM or you in the arts, but the origins of education, philosophy, arts, mathematics, Latin, all of those they weren't as fragmented. They were a part of the curriculum. And so those kinds of things, we're at this crossroads. We're still having these same kind of discussions when it's a both and, not a either or. The arts are equally as important. And if you really think, not to say America has a monopoly on innovation, but you look at the places in the world where they have more of a rote education, where they're so technical, some of the creativity that we're talking about is not coming in an abundance in volume from those countries. So we need to make sure that the arts is still equally integrated within our curriculum, but we also want to make sure that we have robust, rigorous STEM course offerings for students.
I think that's an excellent point. I completely agree, and it made me think of just how important the writing piece of STEM is, and you have to have a foundation and be able to write, to be able to communicate your ideas, and you get that through that liberal arts education. And I think that's so critical to have scientists who not only are thinking science, but can communicate that to others, whether that's through a presentation or through a document that you have to write. My job involves a lot of interaction with regulators, and being able to describe what we're doing and why is such an essential part. So I couldn't agree more that, we focus on STEM education, but you've got to have those other pieces. You've got to understand the classics and the literature.
Yeah, it's important that society develop human beings, people who are human, and the best way of promoting humanity is by promoting freedom. And there's no country in the world that is more free than America. And so it's important that while we are Americans, we realize also that there are other people who live in countries that are not free. That's what enables us to lead, is freedom, because freedom fosters creativity and innovation. If you are capped in terms of what you can think and what you can say, then you lose the innate ability to create. And so to protect freedom, to protect democracy is something that even a scientist has the responsibility to protect. So to become a scientist or a mathematician without a heart for service to the people is not the best thing. The best thing is scientists and mathematicians and others who have strong hearts for freedom, for democracy, for the people, not just America first or the people in this country, but the people of the world, because this world is like a ship on the ocean of the universe. And our ship, we need to protect that ship, and we need to use our knowledge and our heart to maintain and enhance this ship, because there'll be others who are coming along after we are no longer there, and they deserve to be able to have a ship to cross the sea of the universe the same way we had one.
If I may follow up, I want to appeal to you all because you all represent the future, and you all will be the leaders, and one day you will be on the panel, and one day you won't have hair, believe it or not. I know you can't think that way. You're not thinking that way, but nevertheless, unless you solve the hair problem for us. But nevertheless, it's hard to engage our democracy if you don't have access to a quality education. When I first got in this role, I was invited to my beloved South Carolina where I grew up. And I met with both sides of the legislators on the House and in the Senate side. And one legislator said to me, Dr. Moore, he said, in my county, we have about 700 to 800 students. We only have one math teacher, and the highest math you can take is algebra. That has nothing to do with your intellectual capability. It's having access, but it's not unique to South Carolina. I can go to Nebraska. I can go to Ohio. I can go into urban centers. I can go into rural centers. We need to solve, that is a grand challenge for tomorrow. The nations that solve these disparities in our educational system in rural America, urban America, in various jurisdictions across America, that will give us our competitive edge. Our greatest asset is human capital. And how do we cultivate that human capital? The more we cultivate that human capital, the more we can continue to produce innovation and scientific inquiry and discovery, not only in this nation and beyond.
A great setup for a question I'd like to ask the Congressman. When we talk about balancing out the competitive realities of a global society and the necessary spirit of collaboration, first, how do we get there? And more specifically, how do you see STEM affecting emerging technologies such as AI?
Yeah, I think to maintain the heart for service that you have, which you have already demonstrated with your volunteerism promoting STEM projects, is so important as you get older. Because as you get older, you tend to become less caring about other people. You tend to become more conservative and concerned about maintaining what you have acquired and not jeopardizing it, and not stepping out of your comfort zone because you begin to get lazy and you're satisfied and you got it all going on and there's no need to change a thing. Just keep everything like it is. And meanwhile, the world is moving past you. And as you get older, you become part of the system. And so you become part of the system. And so to always maintain the youthful spirit that you have right now is of great importance, that spirit to serve. And serving doesn't have to be on a grand scale. It can be just with an unstemmed guy such as myself. There's still a whole lot of unstemmed people being produced. And to be able to work as a tutor or somehow involved with young people, helping them, or even older people who want to advance. Just being of service to one person at a time is good enough. What's the rest of your?
Just what's the projection, if you will, the role that AI would play on emerging technologies?
Yeah, so, artificial intelligence, intelligence is not probably the best descriptor of artificial intelligence. It's like predictive, it's like a database upon which you can predict outcomes. It is in no way human, but it can be humanized by those who adopt it. And so artificial intelligence is here to stay, and it's going to become even more ubiquitous in the affairs of human beings. And it can be good or it can be bad. That depends on the human beings who are manipulating it or in charge of it or over it. And so we just have to have a sense of morals also. What's good, what is evil? I mean, those kinds of things. You know that you can't steal. You know when you're taking something from someone or getting something, obtaining something that does not belong to you, and it's being done under false pretenses. And you can't hide behind the technology that is being deployed to effectuate that sinister plan and not take responsibility for it. But it's getting easier and easier to do that. We got to have people in high places who understand technology and are atop and in charge, but yet making the right decisions, not for their own selfish greed or anger or envy, but higher levels of thinking and acting. You know, so we're depending on you all to make do with this new technology, AI, quantum computing. You know, I mean, the future is mind-boggling in terms of how far it can go, but if it's not based on humanity, then humanity is doomed. So that's my response.
We appreciate that, the ethical responsibilities. Erica.
I think they're calling votes, so I do want to excuse the congressman but thank you so much. And
Thank
if
you.
you want to close with anything, please feel free.
I'm so honored to be amongst you. I look forward, in this room is the next Bill Gates and Mahatma Gandhi in one. And I hope that that is you. Thank you.
Thank you. What an honor and a treat to have a ranking member join us and give us so much time and attention. Dr. Barletta, I'd like to ask you, if you wouldn't mind, you have a unique background possessing a PhD and also a medical degree. I call her doctor. I would be interested in hearing about your STEM journey and how various it is, the time that you've spent in Tanzania, if you wouldn't mind going into that slightly, but also what it's been like in a corporate setting.
Certainly. It's definitely an interesting journey. And I think one of the key points from the outset that I want to make is that I think a lot of time we get fixed on what we want to be when we grow up. And I think sometimes you forget that this is going to sound very cliche, but life is a journey, right? Like it's not going to be a linear path. And I think that's hard for a lot of people that are certainly STEM-minded, that say, oh, I'm going to do this and this is my path to get there. Life throws you curveballs, and you do have to kind of change direction sometimes, and it'll lead you to a better place. So, so for me, as you said, I did, undergrad. I did the medical scientist training program through NIH. I got my, the way the program's set up is you do 2 years of medical school, you do your entire PhD. Mine was in pharmacology, and even there, I was thrown a roadblock. My kind of the scientist that I was working under decided to move to California halfway through my PhD, so I had to kind of restart. So my PhD took longer than expected, and then you do your last 2 years of medical school before going into residency training, et cetera. So for me, my MD PhD was already longer than expected at kind of 9 years. And I thought I was going to go into pulmonology. I knew I wanted to do pulmonology. I loved the lung and lung biology. But then I got into the clinical portion of my training and realized I love women's health. I liked operating. I liked being a gynecologic surgeon. And so it kind of, I had another career shift away from pulmonology and into OBGYN. So I ultimately trained and became a board-certified OBGYN. And I loved that. I moved to North Carolina. I got additional training in gynecologic surgery for women who are kind of peri and postmenopausal. But life happens. I was married. I had a 6-month-old. I was in North Carolina. My husband was a surgeon in New Jersey, and we couldn't make our call schedules work. And it's a reality for a 2-physician family, really. And so I gave up what I was doing. I left my fellowship training. I had anticipated taking 6 months off and getting a new job once I moved to New Jersey with our 6-month-old. But then COVID hit, and so I didn't want to go back. I was actually pregnant with our second at that point. And I didn't want to go back to work in a hospital pregnant during COVID. So I ended up taking 2 full years out of the workplace, which is hard for someone who has always been STEM-driven, as all of you are, and worked really hard to kind of achieve the things that I had. And it's hard to take 2 years off, but ultimately it gave me the time to think about what I really wanted to do. And most importantly, I was able to take 6 months to interview people in all different kinds of fields about what their jobs were. I just networked within LinkedIn, within friends that I had, and I learned about all these different career paths that were open to physicians and scientists. And ultimately, partly because my PhD work, I did a lot of work with a biotech startup. I realized that in New Jersey there's a lot of pharma, and there were great jobs in women's health, particularly at Ferring, doing research and development for new treatment for a variety of kind of maternal health and fertility-related diseases. But it was only because I took those 2 years off and had that time to kind of explore what was out there that I was able to jump to what I'm doing now, which I think is the perfect fit for my interests and what I want to do. But I really think the key takeaway for me is, I'm not at all where I thought I would be 20 years ago, but I'm so much happier because I was able to kind of derail from the standard medical path and do something a little bit different. And one of the things I got to do is come be here with all of you and learn about, the things that you have accomplished and the places you're going to go. And it's really exciting to be able to meet all of you. But that was kind of my journey.
So Dr. Moore, would you sort of answer the same question? What has your STEM journey been?
Sure. I'm a behavioral scientist. I train counselors, and everyone try to look at me and say, how did you get in this space? And part of my training is solving problems. So one of the grand challenges when I was at Virginia Tech was how do we increase participation? How do we get students through what somewhat referred to as the weed out courses? So many students come in and say, oh, I'm going to be a physician. Then they take organic chemistry, and it changes their worldview. But nevertheless, I got into that world around educational success, the science of learning, the science of teaching, the science of mentoring. And these are things, you notice I'm saying science. There are different mechanisms, and there's an art to it. The science is you keep getting the same kind of outcomes. The art is you do it in a creative way where it can reach people where they are. To be frank with you, I got really embedded in it because my sister was superior cognition, so she was highly gifted. She was a TIPS scholar at Duke University, the Talent Identification Program. And I watched some challenges she had as being a young woman in calculus. And so I was working on my PhD, and I studied gifted and talented students. And I began to send lots of papers to her teacher where she went to high school without my name on it, just said FYI. And what I learned is places like NSF, we have made immense investments. I'm talking about hundreds of millions of dollars into research that improves teaching and learning from K at every juncture of education. And I'm always wondering to myself, do professors actually read it? I'm not sure they do because the way they deliver their instruction, it seems very similar to what it was when I was a student or even when my mentors were students. Behind the lectern and began to profess the knowledge as a banking concept. And there are better ways to deliver instruction. And so that's how I got in that space. And I did a dissertation in engineering. And it's kind of like you want to push. I gave birth to my dissertation on June 14th, 2000 at 1 p.m. You can see I still remember. And it's just like a baby. It might have some blemishes in it, but it's still my baby that made me a doctor. But nevertheless, let me just say, I knew I wanted to go into the professorate, and I hope that I can inspire, because everywhere I go, people don't wake up and say they want to be an educational researcher. It's kind of like one of those things you just discover, primarily because many of the people who go this route, they come out of the teacher education route. And so many people say they don't want to be teachers. And certainly that's one of my job is to demystify the importance of STEM teachers. In many ways, if I ask many of you all why you are pursuing what you're pursuing, if it's not your parents, because this is what research suggests, because parents tend to have the most access to you, and they model, whether they, mom and dad, whether you think they're watching you or not, they hear you, and they go into areas because they have close proximity to individuals that talk about it, or they model it through their friends and their network. But the other place, if you don't have those family members, you tend to lean on your teachers. When I ask someone why they went in pharmacology or chemistry, it's because they probably had a dynamic chemistry teacher, or if they went into biology, or if they went into English. I mean, I was a language arts teacher, and I did it because I had the best language arts teacher, I thought, in America, and she knew the art and science of teaching. And so that's kind of been my trajectory, but I've done a lot of different things in this role. I got tenure, then I went and worked in DC Public Schools in a senior administrative, went back to Ohio State, then started a center that I currently run, and then became associate provost. Then I left, got full professor, distinguished professor, then went to the NSF and worked in engineering. Let me just say, in the academy, that's what we like to refer to higher education. It's a place that if you never read it before, Tuesdays with Maury, that's one of those books that I would encourage you to read. And I used to have Fridays with Hornshield, and that was my major professor. And he basically showed me the rules of engagement, and he told me, and here I am, I'm always like a student around him. He's retired, and he told me being a professor has to be the top 10 jobs in America. And I cannot disagree with him, because I've been able to do a lot of different things, but not only a lot of different things, I get to meet some of the most brilliant students in the world as a result of this job. So don't foreclose on that. You can go in medicine and be a professor. Anything you almost can think of, we need you, because in order for us to proliferate the workplace in these new frontier areas in STEM, we need to have the people who have the expertise, but not only expertise, the gentle touch and the ability to be able to convey in layperson's terms the knowledge that they have.
Just one, I see Erica approaching the mic, which means we're getting ready for
Get people ready for lining up in the queue.
Oh, I love that. Let me just ask Dr. Moore one follow-up question, because he talked about the impact of professors and how life in some ways directs itself. I've spent enough time with individuals in the field. Orlando Taylor comes to mind, Leonard Haynes. They think you hung the moon. So I want to ask you, what's it like to have arrived at a place where you control a $1 billion budget?
It's surreal, and it's more. In fact, I thought they told me when I first got to NSF, the little budget that you had at Ohio State, which is one of the biggest in the country, and my office was, they said that's dust money. And I said, dust money, wow. And when probably within the first week, I was transferring tens of millions of dollars to different places. But let me just tell you, when you parse out that budget, when you factor in the grand challenges of our time and how daunting some of the challenges that we have that I referenced in South Carolina and how that's true in all across America, that's like, I'm gonna use some of my southern sayings. It's like taking a 5-gallon bucket from the ocean and say you stole the ocean. And you really didn't steal the ocean. But I recognize, but that does not make me waver in whether or not we can make a difference. In fact, I'm more vigilant, more focused, and I believe we can make a difference because I realize money alone won't solve some of these grand challenges. It's going to take teaming, collaboration, and partnering to solve some of these challenges. And how do we maximize the resources that we do have and to move innovation at speed and scale? And I think those are the things, those are gifts that I have, particularly the school districts that I've worked in. They tend to not have resources. And so if my mother was living, she was saying, well, you don't have the resources, what you gonna do? You're just gonna die, you're just gonna quit? No, I'm gonna be resourceful. I'm gonna be more creative. And that's why AI is important. If I may give one little overview about AI, my directorate has probably conservatively made about $75 million in investments across the federal government, including with NSF. We have 26 AI institutes, and we done put in almost $500 million. I would imagine if you look at some of the popular literature, you see Congress is having discussions about making other investments. The nations who get this right will be the leaders for a very, very long time. And so one project in particular that I'm very excited about is the AI Institute in SUNY Buffalo. They're the lead. And it's focusing on speech and hearing. And those who may not know this, there's a dearth of speech and hearing professionals across the nation, particularly in our most vulnerable, under-resourced schools in America. If you're fortunate to have one, if you're in one of those school districts, at best, the speech and hearing professional will be able to do the assessment. So this project, if it realizes what it proposed, it will be breakthrough all across America and the world. First, it focuses on using AI for assessments. Second, for interventions. 3, using ChatGPT for 504 plans and IEPs. Those who know anything about K-12 and special education, you know, you have stacks of paperwork, and so this is going to be transformative. And it could be a model for counseling, because we know we have a dearth of mental health professionals around the country. The AI will give us the capability to do things that we have. Now, some people don't like to say AI, they like to say machine learning, as what the congressman. But regardless of what you say or what you want to call it, these are tools that can advance humanity. And we want to make sure that people have the ethical frame. And I want you to know, NSF, we're not limited to science, mathematics, and engineering. We also have sociology, anthropology. These are also deemed as STEM areas as well. Sometimes we get so myopic and we saying STEM is this. STEM is much more, and even what we define as STEM today, based on innovations, we're constantly creating new disciplines, new areas of new frontier, and you all could be a part of that. So if you say, I want to go into just major in English, and I want to talk about Thoreau and Hawthorne and all the great American writers, you can do that. But you also can add data analytics and data science to it, because the humanities are beginning to embrace this in ways that we haven't.
All right, a round of applause for our panel. And I think our leader wants us to move to Q&A.
Yes, so we'll turn to questions. So step on up. Here we start chance.
Still too short for this. Okay. Hi, my name is Avery Mizrahi. I'm from California, and I'm going to be a rising freshman at Harvard studying neuroscience. First, I want to take a moment to thank Dr. Moore for his work, because my work for the Congressional Award was actually with the NSF. I was an NSF-funded fellow at the YASA lab at UC Irvine, where I studied Alzheimer's disease and Down syndrome, and that was a life-changing project for me, so thank you for that. My question is going to be directed to Dr. Barletta. I would love to hear your experience as a woman in STEM. I feel like there's been a ton of progress, so many organizations to help, and yet I'm wondering if you still have experienced misogyny in your field.
That's a great question. I think I'll start with the positive. The number of women in medical school now outpaces the number of men. The number of women in STEM careers in general in education is outpacing men. So I think there's a lot of progress and a lot of women who are going into it. I think certainly more women in my generation are starting to be in more leadership roles. So that's good. I think it's always helpful to have someone to look up to say, all right, she did it, I can do it too. I had people like that have kind of inspired me to keep going. I don't know if it's misogyny as much as I would say it just gets hard because our society hasn't necessarily figured out the right balance when you get to be my age and have kids, how you're gonna work that out with your spouse. And I think too, we're doing a better job of creating systems of childcare and balancing our our partnerships with our spouses in terms of that burden in the family. But I think that's where a lot of women, certainly in my age, are struggling, because you have the family burden that's still there from the 50s. And it's just a way of figuring that out. And I think the hardest thing, honestly, is getting understanding from other women in the field who are older, and having that understanding that you might need to take the afternoon off sometime to go pick up your kids, or you might not be able to make it one day because your child's graduating from kindergarten. And so I think that's where we need to have a little more flexibility and understanding in our workforce, that sometimes women need different hours than men if they're the primary caregiver. So I wouldn't say misogyny as much. I think that's been a big improvement, but we need to kind of still work on this issue of women kind of work two jobs at least. So
That's really insightful. Thank you.
Hello. I would like to first thank the panelists for speaking to us. This was one of the panel I was looking forward to the most, and I'm really grateful that I learned so much from your experiences and perspective. So a bit about myself is I'm Yue. I'm a rising senior. I'm a rising college freshman studying computer science at Brown University. And during my junior year of high school, our school suffered the academic dishonesty plaque from ChatGPT, and I wrote a proposal paper for an AI assistant that uses large language models to detect academic dishonesty homework and assignments, and also used it for translation to communicate with immigrant parents who are like the local demographic of our school. And unfortunately, we could not run those machine learning algorithms on our computer due to the lack of computing resources, but I was able to secure a $10,000 sponsorship with Lenovo to buy a machine learning server. So my question is, what are your advices for students who are trying to pursue a STEAM project but lack the resources to do so?
Well, certainly NSF, that's what we do. NSF, nearly a $10 billion, a little over $9 billion budget. And we fund basic, fundamental, translational research. And so we fund a number of students. And then in that space with computer science, in my directorate, we co-fund with another directorate with SISE called CS for All, Computer Science for All. Trying to proliferate the number of students who have computing skills, but not only computing skills, but the ability to do research in these areas. In my directorate, we have a number of programs that fund technologies that advance teaching and learning. And what you just said is not just the technology, but in rural America, they have broadband challenges. And one of the things I tell my program directors, if we don't factor in three things, it's like we're going to be creating technologies that people can't utilize. One, it has to be low cost or no cost. It has to have low broadband use. 3, and the teachers have to have high quality professional development. Oftentimes the students are more equipped than sometimes our teacher force. And these are 3 dimensions, so I know you're going to continue to develop because you're ahead of the curve. And sometimes some places they're creating policies where you can't use it, but they haven't really thought about what would be the advantages to using it. How can it be a tool? It was created to be a tool to advantage students. And the other piece, when you talked about English as a second language, we have to make sure in AI and technologies that we co-create with communities, because the most vulnerable communities will be they will experience the greatest disparities and challenges. For example, in the Midwest, they like to call a soda a pop. In the South, we say a soda. I grew up saying a commode. My friends in the Northeast grew up saying a toilet. What I'm basically saying, nomenclatures are really important when you think about AI and technologies. But not only that, you read on the newspaper or on television, AI doesn't capture phenotype really well. We need to solve some of these grand challenges. And this is what I learned. This is not my area. I understand a lot of information is pulled from the cloud. And if junk is in the cloud, they tell me generative chat GPT is going to produce something whether it's right or wrong. That's scary to me. But I think we have the brain power in this room to take bias out of a machine. It's harder to take it out of the individual, but in turn, maybe if we focus on the machine, in turn, it may rub off on the actual person. So that you have a charge, but I know you're ahead of the charge, and I'm going to follow you, and I hope that you will stay in contact.
Thank you.
Sounds like you have a charge and a hookup. This guy's saying, this is not my field, and then he goes into a dissertation about it. Please, next question.
Good afternoon. My name is Chase Plater. I'm from Prince George's County, Maryland. And my question is, since you guys are in executive and leadership positions with a STEM background, how has those things you learned from your STEM background, like those concepts, those transferable skills, helped you with those leadership and executive positions you have today?
Sure, I can talk about that. I think one of the things that I've always found being someone interested in science and STEM is that I have an innate curiosity, right? I just like to learn things. That's what drives me. And so I've always enjoyed learning about business and business skills. So that's things like personal branding and managing up and power and leadership. And so I've always enjoyed reading books on those topics, even though, when you're in the middle of medical school, it's probably not the most important thing to be reading in retrospect, but it helps you later on in life. And so I would say use your curiosity and your ability to retain a lot of knowledge to work on those soft skills. Because yes, I'm in business now, but those help you if you're in medicine or you're in science. You're going to have to learn how to manage people. And, I had mentioned writing before. Learning how to write is so critical, because if you're a scientist who's needing to get grants, you got to be able to write those grants and be convincing in your arguments. So I would say just do what you can with your brain that already wants to learn, but make sure you're learning kind of all aspects and focus on the business skills if that's what you're interested in getting into. There's lots of books out there that are fun to read.
Thank you.
Congratulations on everything.
Great question. Please.
Hi, I'm Ria, and I'm a rising senior from New Jersey. And I just wanted to know about your thoughts on ethical considerations with AI, because I know there have been so many conversations and thoughts about things like, for example, in image software detection for skin cancer. Darker-skinned individuals have a harder time receiving diagnoses for skin cancer simply because there isn't enough data in the database. So I was wondering, what are your thoughts, not just for skin cancer, but biases overall in AI and how we can mitigate those?
first of all, you can't mitigate anything if it's not, if that's not one of the goals. Certainly at NSF, we're making immense investments around algorithm bias, data sharing, information sharing. All of those things are really important because they will compromise what we want to achieve. And because technology is so fluid and is moving at speed and at scale faster than policymakers, and oftentimes, for those of you who, that's why it's very important that we have people on the Hill who have the knowledge base. That's why we have opportunities for people to be fellows on the Hill to be able to share those insights, because people are making decisions every day on subject matters that it is beyond their intellect, beyond what they know. And so that's at NSF, in the federal government, which is really beautiful. I'm considered what they call a IPA, a rotator, and they bring in people from universities or other entities in the federal, in the larger society to come in and work with the federal government. I'm a non-appointee, and I can do this up to 4 years because we know science is constantly changing, and you want to bring people in who can help move policy and innovation within the federal government. So we're doing everything we can, but we're not perfect. But I can tell you, I'm almost on every committee, it seems like, in the federal government, that we're having these discussions to be able to address these issues. And I encourage you to think about, because these are the very things that you're thinking about now are the very things that creates a career trajectory for you tomorrow.
Thank you.
I would also just add that I think this is where diversity is really important, because you need diversity of opinions and a diversity of thought and diversity on your teams to be able to think about all these issues that are really essential to these technologies. And so I think that's probably one of the most important things that I think there's some good focus on is getting that diversity in your teams to have diversity of thought.
Hello, panelists. First of all, thank you for being here. I found everything really insightful so far. My name is Yashvir. I'm a rising senior in Northern Virginia, and I'm really interested in research, and myself, I do research in neuroscience. So right now, I'm taking magnetic resonance imaging data and reconstructing it with my own AI frameworks to basically help with communication in patients who cannot speak and comatose classification. So I've been lucky enough to go to the International Science and Engineering Fair a few times. However, I've noticed in my school that there's not that many resources. In fact, I did all of my research at home with a laptop that's 9 years old, everything in silico. And, you know, in my high school, it doesn't even have a lab. In fact, we have microscopes that only go up to, 100x magnification. So how do you think we can integrate these STEM resources into schools like mine, which divest more of their money and investments into things like sports? And how do you see the future of this changing and integrating STEM resources into schools like mine?
I wish you could come and work in our office. I mean, because I could share some of my workload. You know, a big part of my job is to democratize STEM. And much of some of the legislation is focusing on research infrastructure, focusing on what we call emerging developing institutions, not just the Ohio States of the world, but the smaller institutions, because we know talent exists everywhere, but opportunities don't always prevail, and all institutions don't have the same infrastructure. But that's also true for K-12. We equally need to think about, because you got a chemistry room doesn't mean you have any supplies. Because you got computers don't mean you have broadband. And in some of these schools, broadband is like being in an underdeveloped nation because it doesn't work at the level that it should. So these are the kinds of things that we need you to continue to advocate. But on my part, I'm advocating and trying to think about ways in which we can proliferate resources to schools like yours.
We're going to move to a lightning round, just so we finish these questions of those that are standing, because we have a requirement to be out there by a certain time. So if we could just keep it to 1 minute, and we'll finish up and then take a group shot with all the STEM stars, so don't go anywhere. Go ahead.
All right, then I'll just ask my question really quick. So I'm a high school student, and I'm sure everyone knows ChatGPT and how it's like really easy to cheat. Do you guys believe that this use of AI can basically stop innovation, or like how do you think it'll affect the projection of STEM in the future? Because you can cut corners, make it write papers for you, and I feel like a lot of students do that. Is there any way to combat it? Because we've only been talking about like the positive use of AI. Like, what's your opinions on it?
I would say it's not perfect because I've, dabbled in Chat GPT when I've had to write things, and sometimes I ask for a citation list, and then I go through what it's cited, and the sources are completely made up. So I think you need to use it judiciously and understand its limitations, and understand that any of these AI technologies can hallucinate data, right? They can make things up. And so I think, if anything, we need to be more rigorous in our science until we're sure that these algorithms are working properly and giving us the correct output, as we've discussed before. But I think we're gonna have to learn to work with them because they're not going away. But
All right, thank you.
Lightning round.
My name is Christian Flanoy. I'm a rising sophomore at Cornell University and aspiring physician. And I was curious about what other ways you think that people, even in my position as well as your position, can help influence other minorities about getting involved with medicine, with STEM in general, and things like that, from K through 12 level to collegiate level, and in other ways as well.
Well, that's what I do research on, and I'm gonna say 5 quick things. Interest, it's hard to be interested in something if you've never been exposed. There are over 12,000 jobs as defined by the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, and most people don't know about them, and there are constantly new areas. The second one is preparation. Preparation is K to gray. There's no end to preparation. Third, experiences. We need experiences indicative of where you want to go, or also experiences where you may not even have a clue about, because these are the kinds of things when people get their hands dirty and they see things and they have these experiences, it expands their horizons. The last 2 is connections. We need to have access to mentors and quality teachers, because academic achievement is highly correlated with the relationship that a student has with his or her teacher. But it's also highly correlated with the number of contact. If you don't like your teacher, you're not going to have quality contact hours. And the last one is opportunities. Your interests, your preparation, your experiences and connections determine in large measure whether or not you can access the opportunity. I can put opportunities in people's face, but if they don't have the interest, the preparation, and sometimes the connections, it's kind of like it's going to be a hard situation for them. And so at NSF, we're constantly working to broaden in participation. Not that we want to exclude anyone, but one of our areas is to create opportunities everywhere, for everyone, for whomever wants to be able to participate in the new frontier. But in many ways, never, never, ever, ever dismiss the power that you have in the classroom of being a role model. And you're a role model regardless of what you say or not. Someone is always watching you.
Thank you.
Did you say Cornell? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Please.
Hello, panelists. I'm Joshua Lee. I'm a student at Fairfax County, Virginia. I want to ask this question specifically to Dr. Barletta. Last year in the summer, I had the opportunity to go to Tanzania and administer pharmaceutical drugs to tribal areas in Tanzania. And while in those rural areas, I observed the fact that a lot of these tribal areas and a lot of these rural areas in third world countries, they heavily rely on foreign exports of pharmaceutical drugs in order to facilitate medical treatment within their tribal population. My question to you is, does Ferring Pharmaceuticals also provide such pharmaceutical drugs to maybe, not Tanzania specifically, but towards like rural areas throughout the US? And how can Ferring Pharmaceuticals expand on providing greater access to pharmaceutical drugs to many rural areas of the United States?
That's a great question. First up, do you go to TJ by any chance?
I go to Oakton High School.
Excellent. I went to TJ, so Fairfax County student also. But I feel like that question was a plant because Faring actually has a huge program called Project Safe Birth that we are very proud of that specifically donates or sells basically at cost in the public sector to low and middle income countries. It's a life-saving drug. It's on the WHO approved list of essential medicines. We provide it, like I said, at cost, and it's a postpartum hemorrhage drug. And so it's a drug that stops women from bleeding out after delivery. It's a drug that we sell commercially globally, but it's part of our mission. One of our main goals of the company is to be able to provide this drug to women who would not otherwise have access to it. So that's a big part of our mission. But great question.
Thank you very much. Lightning round.
Sorry.
Hi, my name is Kieran Patel. I'm a rising sophomore in high school. So as Dr. Jane was mentioning, you need encouragement in order to have the different types of things that you want to think you might want to do. So in the school environment, I wanted to ask which of the STEAM parts do you think needs the most encouragement in a school environment?
Wow.
I would say art.
200 published articles he's pouring through.
Well, let me just say, it all depends, and it's contextual, and it may mean something different in different part of the country, but it's not just encouragement; it's skill and will. Some students got the skills, but they don't have the will. Competence produce confidence, but confidence don't produce competence. So one of the things that in a lot of my work is how do we, first and foremost, we need to focus on competence, academic proficiencies and skills. And not only that, we need to constantly put students in environments where they're encouraged to reach optimal success, not necessarily say, I want to be better than that person. I want to be the best that I can be.
Thank you.
One question here.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Burhan Yasaki. I'm from Loudoun County, Virginia. So, ma'am, you have talked about your interest in mixing sports with science. So my question is that, how can I cause a change in my community about, excuse me, my throat. How can I cause a change in my community about sports? Apologies. I've written this down. How can I cause a change in my community about problems in sports that we can measure through STEM, and basically how these problems also affect students in their schools? So how can I, as a student, also affect others?
So you mean that there's too much support of sports instead of STEM, or?
Well, how can we also increase STEM research in sports as well, so that we can also understand students as well?
Yeah, well, I would say in terms of STEM research in sports, I think the trend is moving that way. I think there's a lot of data analytics that have been driving kind of baseball and basketball and making those sports kind of more data-driven, which I think is really exciting. Generally, kind of at the high school level, I would say the importance of sports that I've seen is that you get that teamwork and ability to work with others, which is really critical for a STEM career. So I think sports are essential, and the skills that you learn, being challenged by your coach, being challenged by your teammates, losing games, losing championships, that is great education for a career in STEM as well, because you'll fail a lot there too. But I hope that answers your question. If not, we can talk after.
Yeah, thank you.
Last question.
Hi, my name is Bella Sangavi. I am an incoming freshman in college going to Georgia Tech for mechanical engineering. And I was just wondering, with all of your guys' experience in education, how do we continue to encourage more hands-on and more impactful courses in the K through 12 and collegiate level to pique kids' interests in STEAM activities?
Well, I'll be succinct. At NSF, we're making immense investments in that space, what we call experiential learning. You know, some might say there's some people might suggest that to get students hooked is to do the experiential piece before you do the didactic part. If you chemistry, if you do the lab might be the way to get them hooked, that they might want to read that dense text, organic chemistry book or introduction. And so these are the things that in our directorate, we produce tools, curricula, and other kinds of materials that help scaffold learning, but not only scaffold learning, but to inspire that students want to learn the materials. So stay tuned. It's not that it doesn't exist. We're working equally. What I discovered in this role is not just doing research, is having a hand in this dissemination and ensuring that the information is mobile and accessible, that people can integrate it in the classroom.
I just want to add also, I think you've charged yourself or volunteered for this, because I think all of you are focused on service and education and STEM, and I think you are the most important people to go and teach your classmates and teach younger generations. And so if you start thinking in your own community of how you can get other children interested in science and other students interested in science, I think that'll go a long way, seeing it peer to peer. So I think you all are capable of doing that, given all the things that you've accomplished already. So hopefully you'll help us.
Thank you so much.
Before we end, just before we close this out, would all the STEM Star recipients please stand? Would you please come to the stage for a group photo? All of the STEM Stars, please come forward to the stage for a group photo. I would like to also bring up our chairman and Mr. Jade Shields from Ferring Pharmaceuticals. We're going to take a group photo with our panelists on the stage with our STEM Stars.
So this is a big one. And I've seen your research. Oh. Yeah. So you'll see that there's a concentrated.
Yes, thank you. So you went to TJ?
I did.
What year you graduated?
2000.
Do you know Erwin Jachani? He runs our direct. He went to TJ.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, we're
And
nerdy.
at Ohio State, I used to recruit students from TJ.
Oh, yeah. It's a.
So I had a couple of them.
Yeah.
They all brilliant.
In front of the panel. Yeah.
Good at highlights.
In the
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I took a seat.
Please enjoy the reception that's taking place in the atrium. That'll be there until about 6:30. So thank you once again.
Glorious King T. I like definitely. You need eight? Bro, it's right there. It's right deflected all the light. You need eight.